Welcome back to the Dr. Rich channel. We have our El Paso icon public figure, Estela Casas, with us today. So we're grateful to have a candid conversation about women's health. We are following the CDC guidelines, the most recent guidelines regarding gathering indoor for vaccinated individuals. Going back to what we were talking about, so with selling the practice, I don't work 80 hours a week as a doctor and then spend another 20 hours running a business anymore.
Right.
So that, and then with COVID, it's like I was seeing 4 patients a day, and it was just like, what am I going to do with all this time? And so first I taught myself Final Cut Pro 10, and I was making all these videos. And I had always made videos, but I mean, I actually got good at it. And such that Intuitive is like $1 billion company, and they're like, who was your guy that helped you produce this video? And I'm like, yeah, I just did that.
You're so modest.
Yeah,
You're so modest.
And then I was like, well, that's not really a particularly good use of my time, though, right? So,
right, because your talent is in the operating room.
Well, but I mean, even in in creating a product, a video product, but I can probably offload most of that to Ruben and let them produce everything, and Jonathan, Christine, and also, to be successful at this, what I've learned is that it's just about constant content creation.
That's what I understand. You have to constantly be doing something on social media.
Yeah.
But the most important part about everything that you're doing is that you're making a connection.
I hope so. I mean,
absolutely.
And really, at the end of the day, it's adding value, right? So my patients, they're already coming because we have done great things in my little tiny area, in robotics for our community. I mean, I'm proud that we've developed a training center in El Paso where, for my specialty, there's 5 places in the country you can go, and we're one of them. I mean, that's
pretty cool.
That's a pretty cool thing.
Absolutely.
So. So patients are already coming, but there's a million questions people have,
and that they forget to ask when they're in
right?
front of you, yeah.
And
because
so
they're intimidated, they're in pain, they're whatever it is, right?
Right, and or embarrassed, right?
Or embarrassed. Yes, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, and so to create a platform where we compile the most commonly asked questions about things. And use as a resource that people can evaluate, like a library of resources from procedures to just, an exam, and then, make it entertaining and
make it fun.
Right. And I don't know. So that was my thought around it. So we spent a lot of time on brand. So I became Dr. Rich, right? Because But
it was his idea.
It was mine.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, so if you look at all
Dr. Worldwide, Dr. Worldwide.
Right. That was taken.
that was taken.
So we have the famous doctor YouTubers. So Dr. Mike and there's Dr. Mama Jones. There's a bunch of different people doing stuff, but there's nobody in urogynecology, robotic, there's nobody doing that.
Except you?
And so I was like, okay, so there's a need. I can, create content, serve my patients better, and then potentially serve people that aren't and would never be my patients, right? So they can, okay, I've seen that, and I live in Timbuktu, but I, now have
more
ability to make an informed decision or research more or whatever, so.
So let me tell you a little bit about when you reached out to me. It's kind of embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of embarrassing for me. You've been my doctor, and but I see you and I connect with you, and you and your wife. But you provide that connection and that feeling of I'm okay when I run into you in the community.
Yeah.
And that's a fine line that sometimes, it's easy to cross.
Yeah.
But I'm very lucky and feel very fortunate to know you, because I know the quality doctor that you are, but we also have that connection outside. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So let me share a little something with you. I remember that you invited me to go watch a baseball game at Southwest University Park, baseball park.
Baseball park, yeah.
What is it called?
I think so, ballpark.
Okay, ballpark. Yeah. Okay, yeah, okay. I remember you invited me several times to go watch a baseball game. And that day sticks very clear in my mind, because that morning I'd had my ultrasounds of my breasts. And I forgot about it, and I went to see you. My brother and I showed up, and we had such a great time. We were enjoying the evening, the beautiful star on the mountain. I just remember what a beautiful day that was, despite everything else that was going around in my life. But you just made me feel, my brother and I feel very comfortable that day. But it was 3 days later that I got my diagnosis, bilateral breast cancer. But so when I look back, it's like you were part of that journey, and it's been quite a journey. Yeah. But you have embraced me over the years, and it's something really special, and I appreciate that from you. Wow. And that confidence and that connection that we've had over the years, because it's not easy being as a public figure that I was, or whatever you want to call it.
You are.
When you walk down the street, you're not going to remember what you saw in your exam room, right? But you might remember what you saw in me. Yeah. And that's kind of intimidating for me, but you've made me feel very comfortable, and it's all good. And I think that's a connection that you make with a lot of your patients, because you're professional.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's just been an absolute honor to know you, and to accept that invitation, and to meet your family. And first of all, I don't believe you're intimidated by anything. I mean, you really are one of the strongest people like I've ever met, and on so many levels. I mean, professionally, your strength through this, and the fact that that was also a very difficult journey that you shared publicly because you knew how important it was, and to have the courage to do that is, I mean, that's stronger than I think anything I'll ever do, or anything that most people would have the constitution to be able to do. But I appreciate that. I think it is kind of a fine line, and I would never, in someone that I know in a medical relationship, impose that socially in any means. But I'm glad that we have the comfort, and we know each other, we know each other's families, and it's just another point of connection, and it's not, and I'm glad that it's not. I'm glad to hear you say that it's not something that is bothersome or concerning, or I mean, obviously there's the thought of embarrassment, but I mean, Absolutely. It transcends that.
I remember you texted me. You texted me when I made my announcement on TV, and you were one of the first ones who said, "Hey, I'm here. I'm sorry to hear what you're going through, but I'm here for you." And I really appreciate that that you included me in your life, and I was able to include you in my journey as well. So that's important to me, and I have a feeling that is a connection that you make with a lot of your patients, away from, in medical terms, away from the office, right? Because that's how you're able to connect with people, and they see you in a different light. And we see you as a human being, not just as a doctor. And you see me as a human being as well, not just a news anchor or an executive director or whatever you want to call me. But and that's kind of cool. I'm happy about that, and thank you for including me.
Well, again, and it's been just an honor for me to be able to serve you, to serve our community, and to treat everybody. And we've become friends, but honestly, I want to be able to express that compassion, that empathy, that understanding. And I feel that I do for every patient.
What I think is important is that, yes, like I was able to share my my bout with thyroid cancer, now with bilateral breast cancer. I never really talked about my other problems.
Yeah.
But a lot of people need to know that we have a lot of problems, and just because we're on TV or it seem like untouchable or whatever you want to call it, that we don't go through the same pain or through the same problems or through the same procedures and through the same problems. That's important to share, and that's why I was able to open up about my problems, because it's important for everybody to know that we're not alone. When we're in it, you forget that there are other people who've been through the same thing you have. And that's why it's so important to be able to share that and be able to share that opportunity with you is also important, because the more you know, the more you are empowered to take care of your own health. And education is key, and you have to be your own, advocate. I don't remember how we met. All I remember is the first time I went into your office is I was having problems. Yeah. I was not particularly hemorrhaging, right, but I was having some heavy periods, and didn't know what to do. And it kind of scares me. It kind of scared me when you realize that your body is going through some changes, and that's why I went to see you. And I remember that first day that I went to see you. You made it all very comfortable and very soothing to be there, despite having to be on stirrups, right?
Right.
But I think it's important to tell these women, just like your first mammogram or your first pelvic exam, it's very important to tell women that they have to take ownership and own, many times what they're embarrassed, somebody else to see. Yeah. And I just remember you making me feel very comfortable and explained everything to me, what was going to happen. And despite the scariness of it all, you made me feel comfortable. And I remember when I went in to have my surgery, to have the hysterectomy, you explained everything to me. You showed me the machine beforehand, so I knew exactly what was going to happen, or I thought I did. Yeah. And just got out of it and recovered well. And women need to know that you have to take ownership of your body, and you have to be careful and be very well aware of the changes in your body, and not be afraid to tell your doctor and cooperate.
Well, and I think one of the big things about our channel is empowering women to understand that they do have a choice. So a lot of women, they'll come and they may be suffering, and maybe they were suffering for a long time. Mm-hmm. And they're afraid to even go because they're embarrassed, or they have a story that someone they knew had a surgery, had a hysterectomy, and it was an incision, and they had problems, and they end up suffering, or God forbid, some patients even end up developing cancers because they were just afraid, or maybe even afraid that it was going to be uncomfortable, and that none of those things necessarily have to be the case. And if you are concerned, get more information, see a provider. And that just because, 10 years ago somebody had surgery some way, there's technology now, and obviously we're big advocates of robotic surgery. There's technology now that really completely makes it a different experience. And obviously providers that excel on certain technologies, and you do need to advocate for yourself. You got to say, what's your experience level with this, and at the end of the day, not every doctor, not every patient are the right fit, and if you're getting the answers you want, get another opinion.
Well, first of all, women need to know that you have to come in with a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And because we certainly don't know it all, so it's very important for a woman to come in with a list of questions that you will answer. And the more, the better relationship you have with your doctor, the better. But yeah, it's embarrassing. You don't like to talk about these very private things. And as a culture, the Hispanic culture, the Hispanic community, we are not used to going to get a pelvic exam or checking your breasts for lumps. Right. And
there's a taboo.
There is a taboo, although things have changed, but there's still, some embarrassment there. And so I'm just very grateful that you made me feel comfortable enough to not feel intimidated or less than or embarrassed to go through the surgery, and because I had a lot of questions. Yeah. I always have a lot of questions as a journalist, but you're your best advocate, and that's what I advise women, that you have to stop. You have to take ownership of your body. You have to take ownership of yourself to be able to ask all those questions of your doctor and stay on top of your health. So what happened to me is I'd had a mammogram 8 months before. And in 8 months, and I was on top of my health. Yep. I took care of. I was very well aware of my periods, and when there were changes in my body, I was very well aware and on top of my health. So I'd had a mammogram 8 months before, and I developed stage 1, stage 2, and this is somebody who's informed and educated about their health and an advocate and all those things, and it still happens. And it happens to everybody, and you can develop cancer anywhere.
Well, and I think that is probably one of the most important messages, as you were alluding to earlier, is, even public figures, we're all human, and we all have these processes, and I think it's empowering for women to see suffering is, or not suffering, but it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength to be able to, I guess it's a vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. And it's empowering to people to say, okay, well, this is someone, certainly I looked up to, many people look up to, and she's human, and these things happen, and if you have these questions in your life, you need to go and you need to get these questions answered. You need to have what other tests need to be done, and hopefully everything turns out fine. But occasionally we're going to find something, and when we do, the key for all of these things is early detection.
Absolutely, I've always advocated for early detection. You talk about vulnerability. It is very hard to be vulnerable. But what I've learned from being vulnerable is that you find strength in not only yourself, but in the people around you who give you that strength because you opened yourself up, because you became vulnerable. And everybody rallies behind you because you're real. Mm-hmm. You are raw. Yeah. And it certainly helped me. And it was really humbling, and I put myself out there every single day, with my wigs and with my fake eyelashes and with my nosebleeds during a newscast. Yeah. And but women need to know, and and men need to know too. But women need to know that we can and should take control of our health and be our best advocate, and reach out to you when you have a heavy period or when you know that something isn't quite right. And not be afraid, because, you do become very vulnerable sometimes, but it is what it is.
Well, and like I said, I'm honored you could come. I'm honored that you've shared all of these vulnerabilities with me and with your audience, and I know the effect on that is immeasurable, and I appreciate you being able to help us send this message on our channel as well.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm writing a book. Yes.
Still high five.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I talked to a publicist today, and I'm going to send her all of my 42 chapters, And yeah,
That's
we'll have
amazing.
to talk about that. We'll have to
Yes.
talk about that.
Yes.
And it's about my journey.
Yeah.
It's about my journey. My journey was very public, but there are some bits and pieces that I talk about in my book that people don't know about.
They don't know. Yeah.
That are necessary and important especially for women and families to know what you go through.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm doing that.
That's great.
So I'm going to come back.
Thanks for joining Estela Casas and I for our candid conversation about women's health and our El Paso borderland community. For our next video, go ahead and put your suggestions in the comment section below about who you think we should interview next. And please share and subscribe.